The day the sea turned black. It was 18th of March 1967. More than 100,000 tons of crude oil was spilled into the English Channel, killing more than 20,000 seabirds and innumerable marine life creatures after the Torrey Canyon, a supertanker carrying the oil, hit the rocks off of the Cornwall coast. It remains the UK's worst environmental accident till date. But what if I told you this accident could have been avoided, but the captain of the ship chose not to? At the time the Torrey Canyon went down, we were still considering the sea as the main place to put all our waste, said Professor Martin Attrell, director of the Marine Institute in Plymouth. Just as this absurd idea did not sound like a stupid one to the people back in the 1960s, the idea of squeezing a supertanker carrying tons and tons of crude oil in it between a narrow channel did not sound like a bad idea to Captain Ruggiati at that time. Why? Because pride. Let me tell you what happened. So on its way to Milford Haven in Wales from Kuwait, where this oil was brought from, Torrey Canyon was to pass through the Isles of Scilly, just off of Cornwall coast in England. Now between these Isles of Scilly and the Land's End at Cornwall coast are these treacherous 7-stone reefs in the middle. The ship was supposed to take the seaward route. You can see there's plenty of space. By the way, Torrey Canyon was as wide as 10-lane road. So if a ship as large as Torrey Canyon would want to sail on this route, no problem whatsoever, right? But what happened was, there was a subordinate of Captain Ruggiati on his shift that morning. He was First Officer Silvano Bonfiglio. When he was asked to report whenever he spotted the Isles of Scilly on their way, he saw that the isles were visible on the left-hand side instead of the right side of the ship. He said, "That's okay. It must be because the currents must have pushed the ship away a few miles from the actual course, but never mind. I can steer it back to the right direction." And so he did, without consulting to his superior first. Why am I making a big fuss about this? Remember, this was back in the 1960s, when you had to spend 5 years on the shop floor before even having an opinion about any changes on the shop floor. Why did Silvano not consult with his superior before taking the turn? It was because they were going to take the seaward route anyway. This was what was decided from the very beginning. So he assumed, even if he would have consulted with his superior, Captain Ruggiati would have suggested the same thing, right? Well, apparently not. On hearing that his subordinate acted on a self-made decision without consulting him first, Captain Ruggiati's sweet behind seemed to have set itself ablaze, because he couldn't have it. Captain asked Silvano to steer back to the previous route, which he knew would lead them to the narrow channel between the isles and the reefs. All this merely to prove a point. Pride is a dangerous thing, you know. Well, in this case, as you will soon find out, and in many instances of our own lives, we tend to let decisions make us instead of us making the decisions. This is especially true when we believe that we are already in too deep into something to make any changes in decisions. Just like how I wanted to get into INSEAD for an MBA and rigorously worked for 7 years just to match my profile up to the standards of the institution. I kept charging towards my goal, never stopping to think that I might be missing something important here. Similarly, back in the 1970s, when IBM was the leader in computing, every computer in companies were manufactured by this giant until the 1990s. You see, IBM had been a pioneer, so never really had a problem with changing technology since the 1900s. But eventually, it did. When households began purchasing computers, and oh, for such affordable prices. IBM was running its operations based on computing meant for industries. Moving to home appliances such as desktops meant cutting off and introducing new departments, which was proving to be too costly for them to keep the show running. However, IBM did not fail. Not because it kept sprinting in the same direction like I did, but because it listened to its new CEO and steered itself into a whole new route to become a software services based company from a product based one. As an NCR aspirant, I was certain that I had everything that I needed because I checked all the boxes before I could begin applying. I thought it was time. I thought it was my time. When I booked an appointment and got on a call with the consultant, that's when I was reminded. I was missing two fundamental elements which could not only prevent me from getting into my dream school, but also potentially nullify my 7 years of diligent hard work and progress. But I was lucky. Many people do not encounter anyone who can remind them of their missing elements or steer themselves into a whole new route like IBM could. However, one can prevent oneself from reaching such a point in life. If your road to your destination seems too difficult to complete, stop, think, analyze, talk to people who have done this way many more times than you have. But most importantly, talk to people who are not the same as you are. You will be surprised to learn that the experiences people who are vividly different than you are have had apply so perfectly to solve your problems. Captain Ruggiati had many chances to change direction until the last mile, but he chose not to because he wanted to stick to his decision. Don't push yourself too hard when you know it's not working. There must be something better lined up for you.